Welcome, welcome. I want to introduce Zuba, who I think has one of my favorite CVs in marketing that I've looked at for a while. Pardon me if I butcher this, but I'm going to have a go at just running through it quickly. So started off at P&G, doing product marketing. That's the beginning of this product marketing journey for you, in Japan no less. Zooms over to the US, goes to Harvard Business School. A couple of years in consulting at McKinsey, back to Asia for Google. Quite a long stint there, YouTube and platforms, if I have got that right. Then you thought, maybe I'll go into the gaming area for a bit. And yeah, went to a fantastic brand, which everyone should know. Called Razer. And now TikTok. Apologies for that.
No.
Quite a CV, a real varied kind of mix of innovative brands there, but also geographies. I want to dig into how product marketing fits into that for you, because that's, I guess, core to your role now and at the beginning, but you've kind of gone through a few different journeys with that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And you got the chronology right as well. Firstly, thanks to the team at Branded for having us here. Happy to talk about something that I'm truly passionate about and has been close to my heart in my kind of 2 decades plus career. So Charlotte, absolutely. I think when I started at Procter & Gamble, so I started as a product manager actually, first being an engineer by education, and then kind of leaned more into marketing and realized that's where I'm getting more excited and my passion could lie, and that's how I got into marketing there. And I'm sure this is true for most CPG or FMCG companies where even when I call it my marketing 101 school, but even there it was always the product at the core of what we are marketing, the storytelling. And a lot of CPG brands will tell very kind of emotional, kind of value, insight-tugging stories. But at the core of it, the delivery of what we're trying to offer our consumers is the product. So kind of that's where it all started. And when I used to do the full funnel marketing and actually all the steps of campaign development, from consumer insights, research, creating the value proposition, and then making kind of campaigns around it, we'd also always have people touch, feel, use, experiment with our products and get their reactions from that. So that even though we'd be talking about kind of insights or values about their life, so to speak, we'd keep that nucleus or the stimuli of product in it, right? So that's kind of where it all started. I'll skip consulting because that was fairly varied, but even at Google, I worked on YouTube for a bunch of years and then on platforms. There as well, it's always been, what any story or messaging that we're putting out there for our users, how can we be sure that we're delivering it? And that's where product comes in, right? And a bit of it being an engineer, but a bit of it just being passionate about innovation and driving impact at scale. I've always been close to product myself. So I've also loved this idea of like working with engineers or scientists back in my Procter & Gamble days of, as we're thinking of what to build, how to build it, and what features should be there, how do we keep that user insight in mind, and then communicate that language out there. So that was true through YouTube and Google, Razer as well. Like we had hardware products, we had fintech products, we had software kind of game enhancers and discovery platforms. All of it, at the end of the day was talking about what benefit we are driving. And same at TikTok, which I know we'll talk more about later. So if I look at everything, even if I've not had product marketing as the core definition of my role, both my personal passion and just seeing what effectively drives user behavior change or makes an aha moment has always been product for me.
And why does it come back to product for you within marketing? Why is that so important? Why is the product at the core for you?
I'll go back to my marketing 101 school at P&G, and I want to say they still use this there, this idea of first moment of truth and second moment of truth. And for most of us as marketers, most of all of our efforts, in fact, if not most of our efforts, are on that first moment of truth. And what that means is the first time we are communicating something with our user or our audience, what are we telling them as a value that we're creating for them, or a benefit we want to give them, or a problem or a barrier that we are overcoming, or just some emotional insight that we want to communicate with them. So that's the first moment of truth, when people listen to what we have to say and they're like, okay, that resonates with me, makes sense, could add value to my life, let me go and take action. Whether that's pick a product from a shelf, download an app and install it, or like try something new, buy something new. Then, if you look at the journey of that person interacting with your product or brand, the next step is what we used to call the second moment of truth, which is where product comes in. And the first and second moment of truth being tied together is paramount, because the promise that you make in the first moment of truth that has convinced the person to go and try your product, whatever it might be, you've got to deliver that. And that's the second moment of truth, where what you've promised them. In my CPG world, it was like better cleaning on laundry or more softening as fabric softeners. I used to work in the laundry space. In an app, it could be like, back when I was working on YouTube, for example, we launched an app for emerging countries that had where streaming video was extremely difficult because of poor networks, poor devices. And one of our main promises was you can watch videos without interruption of buffering and stuff like that. And we had to make sure that no matter what the situation for the user is, we deliver on that. So that was the second moment of truth. And why I say it's so critical is because if you lose in the first moment of truth, you've already lost the game in the beginning, right? Nobody's bought your story or agreed with you and not changed their action. But if you lose them, but you have an opportunity to tell another story, right? So if you miss your first moment of truth, you can come back to it in different ways or with more innovation. But if you miss your second moment of truth and your product does not deliver on the message or the promise you're making, you've lost the user. And even more so in the tech world, where it's just so easy to find that other app, install something else, like uninstall an app. So that's why for me, product is so key, especially as a marketer, to make sure that what you're saying out there, your product can deliver once we get to that stage.
Well, let's dig into what that means in the tech world then. Let's talk about TikTok. Because actually it's interesting framing it in the first moment of truth and the second moment of truth. If I think about my own usage of TikTok, I was so intrigued by TikTok as a platform, everyone was using it. My second moment of truth actually came, I had a baby this year, and it's sort of 3 a.m, breastfeeding, TikTok's amazing, you're just kind of going through. But also I kind of found a community and information that I needed in there, being new to that experience and needing other people to tell me what to do and how they felt, and it really kind of added value to my life in that sense. So actually framing it in those two ways is really interesting. So I'd love to hear more about how product marketing sort of plays into your journey at TikTok and the TikTok brand journey itself.
Sure. I'm not saying this applies to TikTok, but I'd like to kind of preface that with a crude theory that I have through my marketing career. This idea of how the life cycle of a product evolves over time. It's extremely high level and a bit simplistic, but just to kind of give you a flavor of why I think the role product plays in marketing. Most products, and especially so in tech, but I'm sure in other products as well, you can broadly think of their life cycle having 3 phases. The first phase is the hypergrowth. Usually the steepness of the curve is a function of, are you creating a new category? Are you severely disrupting something that exists today? Or it is a game-changing innovation. So the more of that, the steeper your curve. But that's your hypergrowth, where product drives itself. There's a lot of organic word of mouth momentum, a flywheel that drives growth, and you get your wave of early adopters. Then you start entering phase 2, where it's still growth phase, but your curve starts tempering down a little bit. And that's when you've gone through a wave of early adopters, you've gone through that product driving its own momentum, and you're now at a phase where to acquire the next wave of users, you need to give them a reason to come and use your product, whatever that product might be, right? And that's where I think product starts playing more and more of a critical role, because you have to tell this user, it's not very clear or obvious to them. They've heard of what benefit the product could give them, but either that's not relevant to them, it doesn't resonate with them, or they just don't know what else the product can do. And then you have the third phase, which I provocatively use the word commodity, when marketing's role then shifts more into it's like Maslow's pyramid, right? Like you start talking about the value that you create in a person's life, the emotional benefit, all of that stuff, and more top funnel work. So the reason I say that is because TikTok's been, as a product is like about 5-6 years old, right? That's how young we are. And if I were to apply my framework on TikTok, I would say we are roughly in that kind of ending part of phase 1 and starting part of phase 2. Again, this is not scientifically backed, but my theory. And so now if I look at, okay, who are the next billion users that need to come onto TikTok, right? Literally, the next billion users around the world who can enjoy what TikTok has to offer them, I have to start giving them a reason of why. What is TikTok for them? What can TikTok be for them? And there are 2 ways to do that. One is like, if it's a green audience that hasn't tried our product, then we segment them, we look at insights of, okay, what value can TikTok add to their life, and we communicate it to them in that way, and then of course we make sure our product delivers that. There's another, and so that's one way, which I would put as kind of user acquisition. There's the engagement portion as well, which is, to your example, right? Maybe because of if making this up, but if you have a lot of because you're a new mother, you're trying to find more information about ways to kind of deal with the new life that's come into your life. So maybe that's kind of the type of content you're getting more, but there's other things that you could derive value as well from the app. So another thing we do at TikTok from a product marketing perspective is we look at, again, segments of people, and if there's a certain use case A on our platform or use case B, and we see correlations of like if somebody uses A, they're more likely to also derive benefit from use case B, then I'll kind of use my marketing, product marketing channels and messaging to try to drive that. You could think of it as a cross-selling or upselling opportunity in some sense. So there's an acquisition element where product plays a key role, and then an engagement element as well, where also product plays a key role. So, and TikTok is just such a rich platform. Like you could come in to just like browse your For You feed, but there's a live stream element to it. You could become a creator. You can shop on TikTok in certain countries. You know, you can just use it for casual creation to share your stuff with friends. So there's so many different use cases that with one interaction, you might not discover all of it.
Yeah, it sounds complex, but as a marketer, it sounds like you can really nerd out on the data and the consumer behavior. It sounds like a very fun task. When we were kind of talking through your career, we talked about the fact that you'd worked in Asia, across Europe, across the US, in global roles, in local roles. I want to understand how that kind of global versus local layer plays into product marketing, because perhaps there's differences in the product in different markets or the way people use it. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Sure. I tend to use the phrase that product is like the lowest common denominator for when you think of your step back and see your global lens. Because at one end of the spectrum, your product is what it is. Like it has a set of features or experiences that it can give a user, or in the tech world, a certain user journey that they can experience within the product. So that applies globally, because usually, especially, I've worked in big tech and small companies, but in most cases, for efficiencies of scale, you're building a product that will work as globally as possible, or at least across a region, multiple countries, depending on the scope. But then when you start kind of peeling the layers and going from global to regional to local, that's when the decisions you make on what, if you have a menu to choose from, if your product is rich enough that you can talk about 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 benefits, not all of them would resonate with every type of country or region or user segment. So that's when the local element comes in of like messaging hierarchy, feature prioritization. How do we decide, okay, if of those 5 things, which are the 2 that really would resonate in an Asian market versus a European market or an American country? So those are the ways we look at kind of the core of what the product offers is still there, but which elements of it can I pick in a way that will most resonate and drive behavior change for the people I'm talking to?
Absolutely. And again, it's kind of about digging into that data and really kind of understanding
Absolutely.
the usage of it.
Absolutely.
Linking to that, I kind of want to flip it on its head, because we're talking now about kind of how product informs sort of marketing. How can marketing then inform the product the other way around? And does that happen in your role, and should that happen more often?
100%. And actually, I love this question because I use a lot of phrases and words like when I speak with my teams, but especially for my product marketing team, literally as a part of my team vision, one word I use very consciously is the word bridge. Because I always say that my team plays the role of a two-way street. A lot of what we just spoke about is what I call in to out, right? You as a company, as a brand, as a product, there's a certain message that you want to communicate externally to drive behavior change and acquisition. But at the same time, you owe it to your product and your engineering team and whoever else to be the out to in, play the out to in role as well. Where marketing, for me, marketing is always the owner of the user, right? Because when a user is hearing stuff coming from marketing campaigns, from PR, media, for them, it's like, this is all coming from that brand, right? Like, if it could be my team or my PR team or the regional marketing team, but for the user, it's like TikTok is telling me this, right? They don't know, they don't care who is talking to them. So that's why we need to own the user. We need to own the user insight, what they care about, what they value, and where we can add value. And then bring that back to product. And one thing that excites me about product marketing is it's one of those functions that can be the most upstream in any product development cycle, right? Compared to any other marketing functions or any other functions even. And so I put that bar to my team always, that bring those insights from all the research we do, all the interaction we have on the front lines with our people and our users, take it back to the product teams and help them use that to prioritize features, to think of the next wave of the product roadmap and the innovation that they want to drive. Like I myself have, even being a marketer, I've co-written PRDs or PRSs, different companies use different phases in the tech space, but like actual definition of what the product should look like, purely based on the insights that we're getting from the market. Yeah. That needs a lot of relationship building with your product team and building those bridges, but that's what makes it exciting. Yeah,
it reminds me of some of the data points that Stefan was sharing earlier about collaboration. It's kind of beyond just the collaboration within the marketing teams. It's how important that is to have collaboration with product teams, finance, etc.
Absolutely.
As you say, as sort of custodians of the end user, that value that the marketer brings is key.
And sorry if I might jump into Stephen's presentation earlier, the point on marketing measurement and working with your CFO or your finance counterpart, right? For a function like product marketing, most of my KPIs are not top funnel. So while I completely agree that the top funnel kind of branding long-term measurement is probably overstated, I fully agree with that. But for a team like mine, where we focus so much on user acquisition and user engagement, hard quantified attributable metrics are super critical. And using that to create that quote-unquote ROI kind of cycle that I can then take to my finance counterpart and ask for more resources or even justify the resources I've been given, even more imperative in a product marketing function than in kind of wider marketing.
Yeah. My final question is just about how you see that role of product marketing progressing, and what kind of teams or team structures do you think kind of need to be built around that? Okay. What skills do we need?
An unbiased view, but I think product marketers need to be truly all-round marketers. I say that because, so the first thing I always kind of push myself on and help my team on to grow as well is this balance of the art and science of marketing. Actually, it relates to the point I just made, which is for product marketing, we need to be close to product. We need to understand the product. We need to be able to show impact, quantify impact, and attribute it, and so on. But at the same time, we are storytellers as well, right? I don't want my campaigns to be how-to videos, right, out there. Like that's not our purpose. We want to tell emotional stories. We want to tell stories that will tug at somebody's heart and make them change their behavior. So I love this balance of like, okay, I know the product truths, I know the facts and the data I need to drive and the metrics I need to drive, but to do that, I have to pull myself out of that, kind of out of the weeds, and what is that story I'm telling? What is that insight of the user that's going to drive behavior change? So I think that's one balance, art and science. Another one, and then coming back to all-rounded market, and that's why I say that product marketers need to be all-rounded marketers, because they need to be able to know their product, play with it, pressure test it, what can it do, what cannot it do, understand. You don't need to code, but you need to understand what your product can and cannot do, and be able to have that conversation with your engineers. And this is something very true at Procter & Gamble as well. I used to work with scientists who literally are formulating products in a lab, and I needed to be able to tell them, okay, if my user is looking for more softness when they're using a fabric softener, we used to quantify that with experimentation of like, let's say 15% more softness. And then it was my job to translate that into, I need this surfactant molecule to be up by like 7%. I mean, they defined the percentage, but we'd go that deep into technicalities, right? So that's kind of, I'm not saying all of us need to be that way, but that mindset of being able to bridge those two, the art and science, I think is important. And we are a very multifunctional team, right? We work with product, we work with all other marketing functions, around social, brand, creative, agencies, all of that stuff. We work with operations teams. We work with, so just being able to speak different languages and think of marketing holistically, I think, is an important capability.
What would be your advice for people who are kind of looking to get more into the product marketing part of things? What would be your advice in terms of scaling up and kind of improving on these things? Nerding out on product? Is that just like the
number one? You have to love what you're marketing, because only then will that passion come of like, you genuinely want people to experience your product and you want to tell them why is it so exciting. So I think genuine love for the product you're marketing is important. You don't need to be a data scientist, but being comfortable with looking at data, both like, because especially in the tech world, right, we are inundated with data of like user behavior segments. Obviously, we look at everything in an aggregated fashion, but you need to be comfortable with data if you're going to drive user acquisition and engagement. And you got to love marketing, because it's, which I think
live and breathe it.
For all of us, but
well, thank you very much. I think that's come to the end of our questions, and thank you everybody for listening.
If I may, I can't leave the stage without making a TikTok for my channel. So
of course, yeah.
I'm just going to do a quick kind of intro, and I'll turn back, and if you guys want to just like wave or scream or anything, that'd be great.
Fix your hair quickly. Yeah.
Hi, I'm here at All That Matters and the Marketing Matters in Singapore, and here's everyone. Say hello. A bit muted, but thank you. Thank you, Sally.